Hijacked planes, car bombs and explosive belts, vehicles used as weapons, mass shootings. It's almost impossible to turn on the news without hearing about terrorism. Yet, despite its prevalence, terrorism can be difficult to define. Terrorist threats come from formal groups and from individuals. People can be directed by an authority to commit terrorism, or simply inspired by a group's rhetoric or a charismatic leader. Governments can be involved in terrorism by actively providing sanctuary or resources to terrorist groups, or by an inability to prevent groups from using their territory or resources. And while terrorism shares some characteristics of crime and traditional warfare, it does not fit squarely in either category. To further confuse things, people sometimes disagree on whether an act is in fact terrorism based on whether they support or oppose the perpetrator's cause. Regardless of its many interpretations, terrorism can be defined. It is the intentional use of violence by non-state actors against civilians in pursuit of political or ideological objectives. Many terrorists are motivated by the belief that their government fails to treat their ethnic or other group fairly. They may disagree strongly with a specific government policy, or they may follow political and religious teachings that view certain people or countries as enemies. Throughout history, terrorist groups have committed violent acts to advance their agenda. Examples stretch back centuries, from the dagger-bearing Sicarii, who employed terrorism against ancient Roman rulers, to the Black Hand-abetted terrorists responsible for the 1914 assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. More modern examples include the Provisional IRA, who sought to remove Northern Ireland from the United Kingdom and join it with the Republic of Ireland through armed force, and Hamas, which uses rocket attacks and other violence in its campaign against Israel. The majority of recent terrorist attacks are attributed to individuals and groups acting in the name of their vision of Islam. These include Al-Qaeda and its offshoots, as well as the self-proclaimed Islamic State, or ISIS. There is debate about whether religious, economic, political, and environmental conditions in many Muslim-majority countries have contributed to this wave. Due to the conflict in Syria, the rise of ISIS, and the increased activity of Boko Haram in Nigeria, terrorism-related deaths skyrocketed starting in 2012 after decades of fluctuation. In 2014, for example, more than 43,000 people around the world died in terrorist incidents, almost 3/4 of them in just 5 countries. That year, 13,000 deaths occurred in Iraq, compared to only 19 in the United States.
Good day everyone, I am Jumel Pejeño of BSC 3-1 and I'm going to report the classification of terrorist. The first classification of terrorist is the national terrorist. National terrorists, these are the terrorists who operates and aspires to political power primarily within a single nation. So basically, these are the terrorist organization who conducts their terrorist attacks or operations within a single nation only. Uh, they have no other businesses or other criminal or terrorist attacks outside the country, and their only focuses on the nation they have targeted because they focus only on domestic government infrastructure and civilians. And mostly, these terrorist groups are motivated by domestic grievance or ideologies. Let's have an example. Bangsamoro Freedom Fighters or the BIFF is one of the example of a national terrorist. It is an Islamist jihadist militant organization that is based in Mindanao, Philippines. This group is a breakaway group from the MILF or the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, who is not considered as terrorist group anymore because they have already surrendered to our national government. That's why their former member, Amiril Umbracato, founded his own terrorist organization, which is the BIFF now, or the Bangsamoro Freedom Fighters, who have the same goal with the MILF, and it is to seek an independent Islamic state for the Filipino Muslim minority, known as the Moro people. The reason why they want an Islamic state for the Mindanao, it is because mostly of the people living in Mindanao daw are Muslim or have an Islamic religion. That's why they want to obey an Islamic rules and laws. So yun. And what if they conduct terrorist attacks outside the Philippines or outside the country? Then papasok na siya to our second classification, which is the transnational terrorist. From the word itself, transnational, uh, these are the terrorists who operates across national borders. So when we say transnational terrorist, there are more than one country involved or one more than one country being affected by this terrorist group because they operates across multiple nations and they may also have an international support coming from the different terrorist groups. Yun. So, one of the example of transnational terrorists is the Abu Sayyaf or Bearer of the Sword. This terrorist organization is also based in our country, specifically in Basilan Island. Their founder is Abdul Rajak Abu Bakar Jalani and founded the organization in 1991. This terrorist group carried out terrorist attacks in our country, including a series of high-profile kidnappings in the year 2000 and 2001. So, bakit natin siya kino-considered as transnational terrorist instead of national terrorists only? The difference niya kay BIFF is the BIFF only conducting terrorist attacks or operations within our country. They are not targeting a foreign national. Unlike kay Abu Sayyaf, they're conducting a kidnap for ransom, uh, that yung mga victims nila are foreign nationals. There is an article that I've read na they Abu Sayyaf saying daw that they want to uh, they want to focus on or they want to target US citizen or US national just to prove that they are not scared to the US. Yun. So Abu Sayyaf conducting a series of transnational crimes or terrorist attacks that is outside our country. That's why Abu Sayyaf is considered as a transnational terrorist. So, our last classification is the international terrorist. So, ano bang kinaibahan niya with the other classification? It is sponsored or directed by a foreign government used as a tool of foreign policy or to destabilize other nation. So basically, itong mga terrorist group na ito ay being supported ng other nations para atakihin yung iba pang mga country. So, one of the example ng mga sinuportahan na terorista is the Al-Qaeda or the Sunni Islamist militant organization that became notorious worldwide after carrying the September 11 attacks on the United States in 2001 or yung commonly known as the 9/11 attack na nangyari sa United States, and it is alleged that they are being supported by the Sudanese government. So bakit ba naging international terrorist group si Al-Qaeda? It because it is alleged that they have received and support to the other national government, which is the Sudanese nga daw. And most of their funds daw ay nanggagaling with the other nation, specifically sa Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So, dahil doon, I consider Al-Qaeda as an international terrorist. So, to summarize, national terrorist operates within single nation, and transnational terrorist conducts operations across national borders. And when we say international terrorist naman, they receive or directed by the other nation. They receive funds or support with the other nation. Yun. So, yun lang. Um, so, that's all for the classification of terrorists. I hope you learned something today. Thank you.